This is a tutorial for Make Me Raw's Bunny Crochet Pattern. This video will take you through all the special stitches and techniques you'll find in this make. If you haven't got a copy of the pattern, you can find it at makemeraw.co.uk. I'll put a link in the description. I'll also include timestamps below so you can easily click through to each technique. So let's get started with a magic circle. To make a magic circle, place the tail end of your yarn across your fingers like so. Wrap it round the back, round the front again, cross it over at the top and lay it on the back of your hand so you have two strands. Insert your hook under the first strand and pull through the second strand through to the front like so. And now I'm going to pinch this loop so it doesn't slip away while I remove my hand so I can get the working yarn. And now with that I want to yarn over the hook and pull that through that loop. So that is a chain stitch and that secures the magic circle like so. So now we want to make our first double crochet or single crochet if you're using US crochet terms into this circle here. So we're going to insert the hook and grab that yarn and pull it through so you have two loops on your hook. Now I'm going to transfer this all to my other hand so it doesn't spin round the hook, which is really easy to do when you haven't got a lot to work with at the moment. So it doesn't spin round, secure that in that hand while you yarn over and pull through those two loops, and that finishes off the double crochet. So that's your first double crochet into the circle. And I'm going to do that 5 more times. Most amigurumi patterns start with 6 double crochets or single crochets into the magic ring. So let's do that. Let's do that again. So insert the hook into the circle, grab the working yarn, pull it through, and transfer that to my other hand so it doesn't spin round the hook. Yarn over, transfer it back into the other hand while you pull that through those two loops. So now you can see there are 2 double crochets into this circle. Let's do that again. So insert a hook, pull through, got 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. That's my third one. Let's do another one. Pull through, and that's your 4th double crochet. You can see the stitches here, they make little V shapes. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Let's do that again. Insert a hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 and 1 more. Okay, so now we have 6 double crochets all in a line along this circle. Make sure they're not twisted up. Sometimes they might be twisting around a bit like this. So make sure they're all in a line. And then we're going to find the tail end, which is this short end here, and hold your stitches in your hook hand so they don't twist around, and then gently pull on that. And then that should bring them all together into a circle. And that is your magic circle finished. When we start round 2, we are going to work our first double crochet straight into that first double crochet from round 1. If you're not quite sure which is the first stitch to go into, you can count back from your hook. So this loop on your hook here you do not count. So it's this one below it is the first double crochet. So that's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So this is my first double crochet, and that is the one I want to work into at the start of round 2. Now sometimes it can be a little tighter than the rest, so you might have to try and wiggle your hook in there. Sometimes I get this a smaller hook and try and just open up that a bit. There we are, I can get that in there. And then make your next double crochet, which will be the first stitch of round 2, which is normally an increase. So you would normally do 2 double crochets into that first stitch. Now because we're working in the round, it's not very obvious where the first stitch of the round is, so we need to mark it with a stitch marker. So I've done 2 stitches of round 2, and I always put it in the first stitch of each round, so that would be that one there. So that is how to do your magic circle. When changing colour, we always change in the last stitch of the round before we want the colour change. So as you can see here, I've come to the end of round 16 and I've left the last stitch free, and I'm going to show you how to change colour into this stitch. So we're going to start the double crochet by inserting the hook as normal and pulling through the yarn as normal till you have 2 loops on your hook. But now we're going to drop the main yarn we've been using and pick up our new colour. We're going to put that round the hook as if you're yarning over with it, and then we're going to pull through the 2 loops to finish the double crochet. And now you'll be ready to start your new round with your new colour. So we'll take out the stitch marker and we're going to carry on with the next round. Because we are working in the round, there will always be a slight jog where the colour changes happen, but there's a little technique you can use to minimise this a little bit. So as you can see here, the step isn't as obvious as it was up here where I didn't use that technique. And the trick is very simple. All you need to do in the next stitch of the new round is to, rather than make a double crochet or a single crochet, is to make a slip stitch instead. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and then don't yarn over again, just pull through that loop that's on your hook. And just pull on those 2 bits of yarn at the back to tighten it. So that is a slip stitch, and that will count as your first stitch. And carry on as normal. To secure the loose ends inside your piece, all you need to do is tie them together. I normally do 2 knots, 1 and 2, and then I'll just trim them so that they are shorter, don't get in the way. So at several points in the pattern, it will tell you to work into the back loops only. And then this frees up the front loops so that we can work into them to add things like this shell stitch here. I've just changed to the colour I need for this row. And now I'm going to continue to work into the back loops, which are literally the loops that are furthest away from you. So these back ones here. So normally you would work a double crochet by going under both loops. But in this case, you just want to take the back loop and finish your double crochet or single crochets as you would normally, just picking up that back loop only. And you would work this whole round in the same way. So you can see the front loops here are left, and I will show you how to work into those a bit later in the pattern. I've secured my work with a stitch marker so that we can now work on the zigzag pattern across this white section here. So we're going to do this in the yellow, and we want to take off a fairly long strand and cut it off. So I've got a nice big needle here with a really blunt end so that we can thread our yarn really easily, and it also passes through the stitches nicely. Thread this onto your needle. You start the zigzags around the back of the work where the colour changes are. So bring your needle out from the back to the front of the work between 2 stitches down here and pull that all the way through. Now the zigzags are sewn over 2 of the white rounds, so 1 and 2. So you'll be going into this row here with your next stitch. So you want to make a diagonal line. So we're going to go into this stitch here, and we're going to count 3 stitches over. 1, 2 and 3. We'll bring our needle out at this gap here and pull that through. And then we're going to go back in where we started, and we're going to count 3 stitches over. 1, 2, 3, and we're going to bring our needle back out at this gap here. I'm just going to keep going round doing that. So putting your needle back in at the point of that zigzag. 1, 2, 3, and pull it through. When you get back to where you started, you'll notice you'll be one round above to where you started. That's because of the spiral shape that we're working in. All you need to do here is just visually place the lines where you think looks best. For the French knots, I'm actually going to be using a slightly smaller needle with a sharper point, which I'll show you why in a minute. It's still got a fairly large eye, so should be able to thread it on there, like so. Might be a little harder. There we go. Okay. And we're going to knot the end again. So bring your needle from the back to the front where you want your first French knot. The reason I've got this sharper needle is because we need to go back in after we've done the French knot, but we're going to pick up a couple of the strands of the stitch so that the knot doesn't go straight through the hole that we've just come out of. It'll secure it in place. So take your needle and your yarn and wrap it 3 times around the needle. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to go back in. And like I just said, we're not going to go exactly the same hole. We're going to make sure we pick up a couple of the strands of a stitch so that this knot doesn't just go straight through to the back. And then we're going to pull it through and then pull the yarn through. And that should create your French knot, like so. And then we're going to do 1 on each point. So bring your needle back out to the next position. And do the same again. So 1, 2, 3. Place it back in there and pull through. Sometimes you might find that it's hard to pull your needle back through. That's because you have a bulk of yarn trying to get through between one of the stitches. So if you can give it a short, sharp tug, that might work, like that. If not, then I would just redo it and try and go into a place that you can pull it through. Now we're going to work some shell stitches into the front loops that we left over from when we worked in the back loops in this round. Insert your hook under the first front loop in that round, and then we're going to pick up our blue colour and pull it through. And then chain 1 to secure that in place. Now we're going to skip the next stitch, the next front loop, and work 3 treble crochets into the stitch after that. So a treble crochet or a double crochet, if you're using US terms, is yarn over the hook, insert your hook under that front loop, yarn over, pull through, then yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the remaining 2 loops. We're going to do that another 2 times into the same front loop so that we have 3 treble crochets in total. So yarn over, insert hook, pull through. You should now have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And the last one. Okay, so now we have 3 treble crochets into that one stitch. We're going to skip the next front loop and we're going to do a slip stitch into the one after. So insert hook, pull through, and then pull through again. So that is your first shell stitch, which comprises of 3 treble crochets. Sometimes they include 5, but for this pattern I'm including 3. So then we're going to skip the next stitch and work 3 more into this stitch after that. One, 2, and 3. Skip the next front loop and then a slip stitch in the one after. And that's 2 shell stitches. So we're going to work all the way around till you get back to where you started. So this is the finished shell stitches, and then you'll just want to fasten off at the end. To finish off the ends, we can bring them through from the front of the work to the back by just putting them through with your hook. That's 1 and 2. And then just tie these ends inside like you have been doing with the other ends. After a few more rounds after doing the shell stitch, you might find that it is flipping up a bit. So we're just going to sew that down to avoid that. And what we're going to do is just put a very tiny stitch at the top of each shell in the second treble crochet. I'm going to bring my needle out just under the top of the stitch there. So I've come out just at the top of that stitch, and I'm just going to move the needle over just very slightly to just catch a few strands of that stitch and bring it back through to the other side. Again, you might struggle a bit pulling that through, so you might need to relocate your needle a little bit sometimes, but then that just secures the top of that stitch there. And then do the same all the way around. So bring your needle out. So you might want to just look where you're putting it behind there, just so you're coming through the gap, a gap between a stitch, so it's easier for your needle to get through. And then bring it through there like so. And then go back in, making a very small stitch. That's all you need. And then just keep going round at each point until you get back to the start. Let's make the face of our bunny now. So I've got safety eyes here, 2 safety eyes. They are 9mm diameter, and we need to work out at which row we need to put them. So they are going to go between rounds 10 and 11. So we're going to make sure the back of the work is at the back. So then we're going to put the face on the front, and we're going to count down from the top to find our rows. So this is the magic circle here. So that's number 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So in this line here, I'm going to get my safety eye and place it between a stitch like so. And then the next eye wants to be in the same row and about 5 stitches across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to place it in this stitch here. I have to just wiggle so that the gap is big enough to pass through. There we go. Before I secure these eyes in place, I'm going to sew on the little cross for the nose to make sure that I'm happy with the position of them, because we can always adjust them after we've made the nose. I'm going to place the nose 1 round below where the eyes went in. So I'm going to bring out my needle here to start with. There we go. and then we're going to sew it across 2 rounds. I'm going to bring my needle back in at this point here. That's the first part of the nose. Then we need to bring the needle out 2 rounds below where we started. So that is about here. And then we're going to bring it back up and in to finish the cross. Okay, and then you can look at the eyes and see if you're happy with them. So I think this eye needs to go 1 stitch to the left. Let's see what that looks like. There we go. And I think that looks a good spacing now. Then once you're happy with the eyes, you can secure them in place. So we're going to just turn this inside out a little. Now I've got metal backed eyes here. You might have plastic ones, but either worked just fine. Place it on there. He might look a bit funny without his ears, but when they're in place later on, then it should look like a bunny. Next in the pattern, we're going to put a row of bobble stitches, as you can see here. The bobble stitches are placed every 6th stitch. So there are 5 double crochets between each bobble stitch. So first I need to work my first 5 double crochets. I've done 4 here, and now I'm going to do my 5th. But what I need to do is change colour to the bobble colour stitch before I do that. So in the last stitch of my yellow, I'm going to change to the blue. So now you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the bobble goes into the 6th stitch, which is here. For the bobble stitch, we need to make 4 unfinished treble crochets into the same stitch. So let's start the first one. So we're going to do yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we're going to leave that treble crochet there, we're not going to finish it. We're going to do that again. So yarn over, insert hook into the same stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. So now you should have 3 loops on your hook. We're going to do this 2 more times. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. You should now have 4 loops on your hook. And one last time into the same stitch. And now you should have 5 loops on your hook. And what we're going to do now is finish this off, but we're going to drop the bobble colour and pick the main colour up again. And then we're going to yarn over with that and pull through all 5 loops. And that finishes the bobble stitch. It's going to tug on that end to tighten it. And now we're going to do 5 more double crochets. So into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through 2. And what you can do is, if your bobble stitch is sort of indented a bit, use your finger to push it through to the front like that. And then we're going to do 4 more double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and in the 5th one we're going to change colour to our bobble stitch colour and make another bobble stitch in the next stitch. So yarn over, set hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, but leave it unfinished. And we're going to do that 3 more times. So you should have 5 loops on your hook. Drop the bobble colour, bring in your main colour, yarn over and pull through all 5 loops on the hook. And continue this pattern of 5 double crochets followed by 1 bobble stitch until you get to the end. And you should then have 9 bobbles in total. Once you finish the bunny's body and all the detailing, it should now look like this. And you should have a base part and the main part. So now we're going to join these two together. When you finish the last round of the body, it doesn't say to fasten off because we're going to go straight into joining the base part on. To join the base, insert your hook into the next stitch on the body, like so, and then join it onto any stitch along the base, and to make sure the right side is showing outwards. So insert your hook into any stitch around the edge, like so, and then we're going to finish a double crochet as normal, pulling through both the stitches, like so, yarn over and pull through 2. And then we'll do it for each stitch all the way around. So insert the hook into the body and then find the next stitch on the base, yarn over, pull through both stitches, yarn over and pull through 2. Then keep going around until you've joined about half of the base, because at that point we will then add some stuffing. Once you have joined about halfway around, you can add your stuffing. Make sure those bobble stitches are still poking out. Once it is almost full up, you can then continue to join around here. You don't want to add too much stuffing to the base because you don't want this part to bulge out, otherwise it might not stand correctly. You could, if you wanted to, cut a circular piece of stiff card just to insert here, and that will ensure that this remains flat. Once you have gone all the way around, to finish, just do a slip stitch in the next stitch and then fasten off. And then you'll just need to weave in that end. Once you have finished crocheting the rows of each ear, the pattern will tell you to crochet along this raw edge along the sides of the ear. It will not be as obvious where to place your hook as it normally is working into crochet stitches because you're working along this raw edge. But as you can see, there are little holes which denote each row. You want to do 1 double crochet stitch per row, and you'll be putting your hook into these holes along here. So I've just finished the last row here, and then I'm going to chain 1 to turn the corner. And then I'm going to place my first double crochet into this stitch here, which is actually the same stitch that you worked at the end of that round. And then I'm going to work my way along, finding the ends of these rows and these gaps. So the next one is here. And some of the gaps won't be as obvious, they might be a bit smaller. But if you follow these lines along your work, you should figure out where the gaps are. And there should be 18 in total. So there were 19 rows in the ear. We want to make 18 double crochet stitches all along the side of this ear. Once you have done 18 stitches along one side, you'll have one final gap at the top of your work. And into that gap here, we want to work 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to work down the other side another 18 stitches. So this was the gap we just went into, so we want to find the next gap, which is here. Sometimes if you just pull the work slightly, the gaps that you need to work into become more obvious. Once you got to the end, just fasten off. This gives a really nice finishing edge to the ear. You join the two ear panels much like you did the base and the main body by working through both layers. So insert your hook through the first stitch in this corner on the front layer of the ear, the one with the pattern on it, and then insert your hook through the corresponding stitch on the back layer. These are both right sides facing you. And then bring in your colour to join and pull that through. And now we're going to slip stitch all the way along the ears, going through both layers. So insert your hook through both stitches, yarn over, pull through, and then pull through the loop on your hook. So work one slip stitch in each double crochet all the way round, and this is how your ear should look afterwards. Weave in all the ends apart from the longest pink one because you'll use that to sew it onto the bunny. Ends that are inside the ear can just be tucked in like so. To position the ears, line the corner of each ear up against the magic ring at the top of the head here. So if you place that one there, make sure the face is at the front, and then you can pin in place your ears just to check you're happy with the position. Once you're happy with the position of your ears, you can then sew them in place. To sew on the ears, pick up a stitch from the head of the bunny, just below that bottom corner. Pull that through. And then when you go back through the other way, go through the bottom of the ear. You can take off the other ear if that's getting in the way. And I'll take that pin out now. Work your way through backwards and forwards. So going one way, picking up a stitch from the head of the bunny, like so. And then working your way back, going through the bottom of the ear, making sure you go through both layers. To sew on the cheeks, we will use the tail end, but here I have split the tail end into two because it's quite a small piece. It will make a neater seam rather than using a big bulky bit of yarn. So once we've sewn around here, then we'll just weave in this other end. You can trim off your starting tail at the magic ring fairly short and tuck it under. If you've pulled it really tight, there shouldn't be any risk of it coming undone once the cheek is sewn on. So to sew the cheek on, we're going to pick up a small amount of yarn from one of the stitches on the face, pull that through, and then we're going to pick up a small amount of yarn from the cheek right at the edge. If you go through the back loop of the stitches on the cheek, that will make a neater seam too. So just work your way around, picking up some yarn from the face and then from the cheek until you've got back to where you started. This is the end of the tutorial. I hope you had fun learning some new stitches. Make sure to subscribe for similar content.